Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're more than delighted to invite Mr. Xavier Gibert, Secretary of General of Enterprises and Knowledge of the Catalan Government, to pronounce his key speech.
Molt bé, senyores i senyors, benvolguts companys del Departament de la Direcció.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, tourism agency, ladies and gentlemen from NECSTouR, first of all, I would like to say a few words to reiterate what the Minister said to welcome you to this workshop organized by NECSTouR, the presidency of which the Catalan Government holds at the moment, the Catalan Region. And those of you coming from outside of Barcelona, even outside of Catalonia, please feel welcome here and use this opportunity to know our excellent city and country. First of all, after the presentation of the regional minister and Ms. Monteiro and Mr. Corazza, you'll see that part of my presentation will show ideas which, well, maybe are not so developed, but quite in agreement with what they said. The workshop focused on, because of its origins, of course, will be focusing on tourism and collaborative economy, opportunities for growth and labor in Europe, and the challenges and risks which are now not known. The first thing I would like to say is fully applicable to tourism, but not strictly and solely applicable to tourism. These are ideas about how, from the Catalan government, we try to approach this phenomenon, this reality, this undebatable reality that we today colloquially, well, it has many names, and probably it encompasses many concepts, but we call it collaborative economy. As I said, collaborative economy is an economy which has many different names. But if we focus on the practices, routine activities of collaborative, or what we call collaborative economy, that we see on our day-to-day, we will see that in many occasions these are not new activities, because luckily the concept of sharing, which is probably at the core of what we call collaborative economy or sharing economy, is quite an old and traditional concept, and part of what has made it relevant, which is the platforms or the marketplace, the peer-to-peer communities. These are not strictly new either. But what is happening? These activities, these practices, which on many occasions were in an area of proximity, and the regional minister said this, there is a new context today which makes it absolutely global. So what's the context in which these activities take place? Basically, the internet, the social media and communications, an open model, interconnected model, with the capacity to coordinate between equals at a massive, between peers at a massive scale, to get what in the past some did just by direct contact. And we also have another reality here, which is the introduction of a new agent or stakeholder, citizens, lay citizens, the recipients of products or services who become a producing stakeholder. And this is one of the big realities of at the source of collaborative economy. So when this novelty is finally installed, because as we said before, and I think Ms. Monteiro said this, we need to be aware that this is a reality that is not new, but in its scope and probably beyond, it's there to stay. So what is the challenge for governments or for administrations? The challenge in the regulating role of governments is to make the activities of these individuals fit with their role of producers, and to make it fit with those who we can call traditional economy stakeholders, and mainly distinguishing when these producing citizens go from a strictly exchange or peer-to-peer environment to a productive economy which can be fully comparable to the stakeholders of traditional economy. And this is when we need to start talking about fair competition and equivalent rules or level play field. The minister said it in his talk. This fit of this new supply and the promotion of its development can only be preserved, well, not only, but it should be done by preserving the responsibility to regulate that the public powers undoubtedly have, and general interest. And general interest has many faces. General interest is multidisciplinary, and it entails legality in providing services, the rights of people, guaranteeing, amongst other things, the capacity to innovate and to be present, for example, in tax treatment, social protection, or protection of workers, protection to consumers, as I said, also innovation, and even the rules for living together, which condition the models of cities or countries. So setting the boundaries of governance in economic activities are the responsibility of any government. And when we are talking about collaborative economy, the challenge is complex, but it is one that we're passionate about too. And specifically in Catalonia, the government is not just ascertaining a reality, but also mandates coming from Parliament, stemming from the most genuine form of political mandate. This is not a phenomenon that can be that happens only in Catalonia or in Spain, but with there is a more free access to the digital means and the globalization of the internet. So we are in an area of international experiences, international stakeholders who have already approached this topic and should be a benchmark for us. And of course also all of the regulations and doctrines coming from the texts that have been published or produced in the EU from Parliament or the Commission. It is true that the EU is proposing or is approaching collaborative economy as an opportunity, of course, for member states, for regions, and for cities as well. We're talking about figures which would probably make us dizzy. And around 2025, the global figure could be at volumes that, if we compare it to the wealth-producing capacity of Catalonia, we could talk about 3 times the producing capacity or the wealth-producing capacity in Catalonia, which is around 200 billion euro. So all in all, this is allowing a more disseminated economic activity. It facilitates entrepreneurship, and it is true that we need to be able, from Europe and from states and regions, to see that all of these business sector, the intermediation sector, needs to also fit with another issue, which I'm sure you will debate broadly today, the sector of collaborative economy with an essential role. So I wouldn't dare say we've reached conclusions, but we've reached conclusions analyzing some background. There is no single definition of collaborative economy, but we can have some characteristics, some features. The relationship between individuals, the existence through a platform or the community of users where underused goods can be used or services can be provided between individuals. We also see it affects several sectors of activity, and that it will be a reality in almost all sectors of activity. It's true that Probably at the onset, this was mainly linked to tourism and transport, but we see that this phenomenon is disseminating to all sectors, all industries of economic activity in one way or another. It is not strange to see news where big corporations are also creating their own collaborative economy divisions, and therefore it is a productive model which will transform organizations. It will also transform the labor market and probably also the social environment. What are in this reflection, what are the key aspects to make this new supply fit and for it to take place mainly in a fair competition environment? Because, as the minister said, if we are in economic environments and we talk about economic production, because we will talk about collaboration, but we will talk about economy as well, fair competition is something that concerns us all and that governments are obliged to. So we need to determine when an activity is a collaborative economy activity provided by an individual citizen, and we need to differentiate when this role of the producer, of the professional, acts through platforms. And we need to determine when these platforms are also considered service providers comparable to traditional business model and not just a connector of supply and demand. And I'm sure this be one of the topics you will debate today. In the next few days, maybe weeks, maybe you've heard about it, the European Court will need to give an opinion on a key aspect from a conflict that started here in Barcelona, which is what are the relationships in labor environments between Uber and the suppliers of the service. Probably the European Court of Justice will give us some clues in the next few weeks.
So the essential principles for the development of cooperative economy are that we have to regulate activities, and especially these activities have to follow the same rules of the game for everyone as a guarantee of equivalence in obligations and of fair competition. So the principle of neutrality has to be respected in technology, the same rules of the game regardless of technology. So in Catalonia we have a political mandate, an institutional mandate emanating from the Parliament of Catalonia, which formally in the year 2014 did a statement on their worry about this phenomenon, which was becoming increasingly implemented, and they focused on the opportunities but also the challenges and risks. So in November 2014, the Parliament created a study commission on public policies on collaborative economy, which led to a first report, which was drafted and presented in 2015. And subsequently, the result was government mandate, which is what the regional minister was saying before. So it's been used as an instrument by a commission of the government, an interdepartmental commission with which includes the different ministries of the government of Catalonia to work on and present to the government and the parliament an action plan on how to tackle or approach this phenomenon, which is becoming increasingly important. And well, we might think that it's an inadequate way to frame it, to talk about a law for collaborative economy. That's not the way to do it. We have to do it from sectorial perspectives and in different pillars. What are the pillars or the goals of the Commission or this intergovernment body which has been created to work on this issue? Well, the pillars are first to characterize collaborative economy, to define the idea of collaborative economy and its features in all areas, especially, I repeat once again, tourism and transportation, but We know that this is expanding. It's become a reality virtually in all areas of economy. So we don't want to draft a law as a government or parliament. We don't want to submit a law for collaborative economy, but we want to do modifications of regulation which are sectorial and specific, which express the practical aspects of the conclusions reached. So we have to modify all the cross-sectional legislation, the sectorial one and the cross-sectional one, especially focusing on not just taxation, but in both in Spain and Catalonia, the taxation is becoming an issue for all tax bodies, and also labor relations. Here there will be an absolute modification and transformation which is becoming evident in courts, and the discussion itself about the approach, about if there'll be a change in conception of traditional labor relations, if this has the wide implementation that's predicted, and also the rights of consumers, because we shouldn't forget that as long as this relationship between peers is conceptualized among labor relations, finally the service is a product or a service which has an impact on the consumer. And the fourth thing, which is not minor, is that we cannot forget, and we have to be aware of the role of platforms, both in their dimension of technology service platforms and also in their dimension of service providers. So we have to find this fit, this cooperation based on the promotion of a best practice code, and these are the working lines on which this commission is focusing, which is just an intergovernment body to work in the government and the parliament on the main working lines, or the working lines that we think are most relevant. So from knowledge, from interpretation, from the analysis of our most immediate environment, or not so immediate because this is a phenomenon which happens globally, we have to understand before regulating. We have to do an analysis of the phenomenon, trying to measure all the impacts, the obvious and great opportunities, but we have to be clear about, well, apart from the challenges of these impacts, we have to be aware of the risks, because after all, as a government, we want to develop the best possible version of collaborative economy in Catalonia. So in this environment, there's a role for bodies like NECSTouR, workshops, cooperations. Well, the cooperation and discussion, and we hope that meetings like this with the conclusions are helpful to implement in Catalonia what's best regarding challenges, impacts, and opportunities for collaborative economy, and minimize, not just saving or avoiding in absolute terms, but to have an effect on risks. So thank you for your attendance. I hope that you enjoy the meeting, and I hope that we can learn from your contributions and include it in what we have to do as an opportunity while avoiding most of the risks. Thank you very much.